Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Thank you, Minister, for facilitating this interaction. Fellow citizens, following the announcement by the State President, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 24th of May 2020, that the alert level for the whole country will be lowered from level 4 to level 3 with effect from the 1st of June 2020, the JCPS cluster would like to announce measures to ensure the regulations under level 3. At this level, several sectors of the economy will be reopened and more people will be able to participate in economic activities. Furthermore, alert level 3 means the country will be easing restrictions which were implemented under level 4. Therefore, the JCPS cluster will be ensuring that the public adheres to the regulations that have been announced by the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, COGTA. Under level 3, the responsibility of preventing the spread of the disease will be in the hands of every member of society. Each person is expected to adhere to all precautionary measures which have been outlined by the World Health Organization, which includes social distancing, hand washing, practicing cough etiquette, avoiding handshakes and touching, wearing masks in public spaces, and staying at home when you are ill, especially. As we move to level 3, we want to salute the majority of South Africans who have complied with the regulations and heeded the call to stay at home since the start of the lockdown period. We salute the way these citizens have responded positively and in a responsible manner. We want to thank you all and also ask that you please continue to conduct yourselves in a responsible manner. Moving to level 3 requires all of us to continue to adhere to the regulations. Under permits and movements of persons between provinces, metropolitan areas, and districts and hotspots is prohibited, except for persons doing so in the course of carrying out work responsibility or performing any service permitted under level 3. Provided, of course, that such person is in possession of permit issued by the employer. Persons traveling for purposes of moving to a new place of residence or caring for an immediate family member, attendance of funerals, transportation of mortal remains, obtaining medical treatment, persons returning to their place of residence from a quarantine or isolation facility will require permits, which of course are obtainable from the relevant authorities as prescribed or stipulated in the regulations announced by COGTA. The South African Police Service and other law enforcement agencies will continue to monitor local and interprovincial movements by holding roadblocks on national highways and rotating in suburbs, cities, and towns. Dispensing, sale, or transportation of liquor. In terms of level 3 regulations, licensed liquor traders will be permitted to sell liquor for consumption off-site. Therefore, the consumption of liquor at the place of sale is prohibited. Liquor will be sold only on Monday to Thursday between 9 in the morning up to 5. No sale of liquor on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and public holidays. And the sale of liquor may be subject to directions issued by the relevant minister. Transportation and distribution of liquor to licensed premises is permitted from Friday, the 29th of May, 2020, subject to directions by relevant ministers. No special or events liquor licenses may be approved for the duration of the national state of disaster. Under gatherings, all gatherings are prohibited, except for a gathering at faith-based institutions, which is limited to 50 persons or less, depending on the size of the place of worship, provided that all health protocols and social distancing measures are being adhered to, as provided for in directions that have been issued by the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. The President announced some hotspots around the country where the infection rate is increasing rapidly. In these districts and metropolitan areas, the JCPS cluster will conduct patrols, roadblocks, and vehicle checkpoints at the hotspot areas. The law enforcement officials will enhance the relationship with community policing forums, provide expert advice and support to various environments, cordon off identified health hotspots, conduct zero-tolerance operations to ensure compliance, utilize the public order police, and conduct high-density crime prevention duties. Under the deployment of the South African National Defence Force during COVID-19 in support of the people of South Africa, in cooperation with other state departments in the fight against COVID-19, the South African National Defence Force has deployed regular, reserve, and auxiliary services throughout the country in support of the people to combat the spread of the pandemic. The main tasks of the deployed forces include healthcare services, engineering capabilities, and of course, lockdown enforcement elements. The force levels will escalate in accordance with the growing numbers of COVID-19 cases within force level availability of 73,000. Healthcare professionals have been deployed to provide healthcare services to deployed members of the South African National Defence Force, and these include doctors, nurses, psychologists, social workers, pharmacists, and many other medical disciplines. These have been deployed to provide healthcare services to the members of the force and, of course, to support the National Department of Health. An additional number of healthcare professionals from volunteers and members of the reserve forces has been added to support, again, the National Department of Health. Scanning teams have been deployed with the SANDF units in all provinces. These military healthcare practitioners are performing thermal scans on the population during patrols at vehicle control points and roadblocks. These will assist in early detection of people who might be infected with the COVID-19 virus, and in doing so, mitigate the spread of the virus. Primary health care teams have been deployed to all 9 provinces to support the National Department of Health with mass screening and testing initiative. These teams are being deployed in both urban and rural areas and to areas where no infrastructure exists. Mass quarantine sites from military facilities have been identified throughout the provinces. These facilities can accommodate for now total bed space of 2,481 in the following provinces: KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Gauteng, Limpopo. Decontamination teams are placed on standby in Pretoria to conduct industrial-scale decontamination and will be deployed to areas as the need arises. Engineers from the South African National Defence Force are deployed, a team in each province, and are operational in 5 provinces currently. That is Tabazimbi in Limpopo, Hartswater in Northern Cape, and Friede in the Free State, Likhonyane and Fatung village in the northwest, and Godide area in KwaZulu-Natal. The purpose is water purification and the distribution thereof to those areas where there is dire need for drinking water. 4 teams of the South African National Defence Force engineers are deployed in rural areas of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal to build bridges in order to assist the population to access services. A bridge has just been built in the Eastern Cape and has been completed in the past 2 weeks, and another is underway in Fini in Queenstown. In the past 2 weeks, inspection and oversight visits have been undertaken to Hoedspruit Air Force Base, where Air Force trainees are undergoing training, which is where we have young people, more than 2,000 of them. Oudtshoorn at the South African Army Infantry School, again there we have more than 2,000 young people. Western Cape in Simonstown at the South African Navy facilities. Saldanha at the Military Academy. There will be ongoing visits to other facilities in Gauteng and other provinces to establish the state of readiness as was done with ones undertaken in the past 2 weeks. We're doing this because as we move along and do this work, there will be cases of young people who will be infected or affected by the virus. As you may be aware, the South African borders are still closed for travel except for evacuation of stranded and distressed citizens. Evacuation of foreign nationals by respective foreign missions, and of course movement of medical ill treatment cases and transportation of goods to and from neighboring states. Daily commuters from neighboring countries who attend school will be allowed to enter our borders with a special permit subject to all COVID-19 regulations on transport and health. During Level 3, Home Affairs is offering these essential services: registration of births, reissuing of birth certificates, late registration of birth, of course by appointment, marriage services, death certificates, issuing temporary ID certificates, collection of IDs applied for prior to lockdown, and the issuing of passports only for people involved in the cross-border transportation of essential goods and medicines. The Inspectorate, which forms part of coordinated security operations, will ensure that any undocumented or illegal migrant who is detained will be subject to deportation. No visa or permitting functions will be open to the public in South Africa and admissions abroad during Level 3. Asylum and refugee services will remain closed. All asylum seekers' permits lawfully issued which have expired are or are to expire during the period of the national state of disaster are deemed to have been extended up to and including the 31st of July 2020. In terms of the administration of justice, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development will issue directives for operations of the courts during Level 3. The department will prioritize urgent cases relating to corruption, sexual offenses, gender-based violence and femicide, serious violent crimes, robbery, murder, assault, and violation of COVID-19 regulations for speedy resolution. Where appropriate, the courts will use audio-visual communication, such as teleconferencing and video conferencing, to conclude urgent cases. All cases which are not urgent will be postponed. Access to courts will be limited to immediate complainants and judicial officers. All those entering the premises will be subjected to temperature screening and will be required to sanitize their hands and wear masks. During the disaster period, the JCPS cluster has received several allegations related to corruption of COVID-19 relief efforts earmarked for the poor. In response to these allegations, the cluster has developed a collaboration framework which will ensure prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution, and recovery of stolen assets and funds. Law enforcement officials have established an interim structure that will address all allegations of corruption and will ensure that those who are charged face prosecution. There is a specific focus on COVID-19 related corruption matters in the courts for efficient resolution, and these are listed as a priority in the directions issued by the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, along with urgent cases including domestic violence and others that the court may consider to be in the interest of justice to address speedily. In conclusion, the JCPS cluster would like to appeal to the public to report any misconduct displayed by law enforcement officials during this time. Should the public witness or experience any form of torture, cruelty, inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment committed by law enforcement agencies, including poor service delivery regarding police response, investigations, and police negligence, please report such at the nearest police station or at the National Service Complaints Center on the toll-free number 0800 333 177. I repeat, toll-free number 0800 333 177, or the following email: complaintsnodalpoint@saps.gov.za or services@saps.gov.za. I repeat the email: complaintsnodalpoint@saps.gov.za or service@saps.gov.za. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Minister Mapisang Magula, for the statement on behalf of the JCPS cluster. Now, we will now open for questions. I have my 3 colleagues here who are ready and willing to answer any questions that you might have in relation to us advancing from level 4 to level 3 in the JCPS cluster. Anybody on the online services yet?
We don't have callers at the moment, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish we could not have. Nangaba, do we have anybody in the WhatsApp? You always have.
I have one so far, Minister.
Oh. Baseza ndos. Nangaba, yeah.
It's from Marianne Merton from the Daily Maverick. She's asking for clarification, please. Ministers are talking about letter from employers for level 3. What is that? Is that essential service permits? Is that an essential service permit that is still required at level 3?
Okay. I will allow my colleagues to respond to that. Have we put the regulations on WhatsApp for the attention of the media?
Yes, we did at the beginning of the previous media briefing, Minister.
Okay. Because then they have in their possession what that might mean. But with that as it may, who wants to answer? Answer lapha. Yeah, ngiyaphendula.
Kule.
Yebo baba.
No, thanks. The question about
Sikubone kahle Ndosi. Sifuna ukubona.
angithi ngizoboshwa mangisusa letho.
Uzoboshwa ngubani nguwe? Uyinaye angeke sifuna ukubona sikuzwe. Asikuzwe phela na ukhuluma ufake lento.
Problem uthi siyifake letho. Azongibopha amaphoyisa. No, the question about the permit is that the regulations argue that people are still not permitted to move around unless they are doing some particular things. As it would have been level 5 and 4, when you go to your medical attention, you would explain that. When you go for your groceries, you would explain that. When you went for your work, you would have a permit. Where are you working? Either essential or permitted services. Here, the regulations, though there will be more people moving now, and those people must have a reason of moving. So people that will be going to work will get the permission from their employers to say this one works for Begi Tele Property Limited. And then we'll have that so that when there is a roadblock, by the way, there'll be a lot of roadblocks still. There'll be a lot of roadblocks. So you show us that you are from work, you explain that you are from your medical attention, you explain that you were buying the groceries, and nobody should be on the transport that cannot explain where she or he comes from. So it will help on that, this permit. They are issued by the employers to their employees in that particular sector where they're employed.
Any other types of permissions?
Yes, other permissions indeed are for funerals. When people go for funerals, which would be cross-border provinces, you still go to your police station, and then the station commander or anybody designated by the station commander will give you the permission, the permit to go to the funeral, and then you go to the magistrate or anybody designated by the magistrate to give you that permission. And then you must be back at your place after 72 hours on that permission. And that permission gives you a right to go and attend the funeral attended by 50 people only. So you can't be more than 50 there. Another thing that you will have to look about funeral at the regulation is that there should be 2 people, family persons, in the car that is carrying the remains, the corpse, the body. So which means you are in a taxi. That taxi can't be full of people and then the coffin. So it needs to be 2 people there and those people accompanying the body. So that's the issue of trying to protect people, to say if the body maybe has died because of COVID-19 and you put all 15 or 17 people or 10 people with that body, might be a danger. That's why we're limiting that, people must be just limited to 2.
Thank you very much. We had one question, but of course we extended that question deliberately whilst we were waiting for questions. Do we have any other questions now?
Yes, Minister, we do.
Okay, I knew that we'll have.
Sbungalwa from Newsroom Africa is asking the Minister of Defence whether the Minister is satisfied with the SANDF report in the Collins Khoza case. Does the Minister consider the matter now closed? Then there is a follow-up question from Malungelo Boy, also from Newsroom Africa, who is asking, with the soldiers linked to the Collins Khoza case being cleared by SANDF Board of Inquiry, does that mean that the soldiers will now be going back to work? Then we have a question from Johnny Sai from Africa News Agency to the Minister of Police. Can the Minister please tell us how many people have been arrested for infringing lockdown regulations over the last 2 months? And we have a question from Tabo from ETC News. And the question is directed to the Minister of Defence. In Limpopo, there's been a decline in police and SANDF presence at entrances and exits into the city of Polokwane and other districts since level 4 began. And it appears to be getting less and less by the day. Is there any particular reason for this? The last question is directed to the Minister of Police. It's from Wonga Sekhai from Inkonjane FM. Regarding the closed police stations, which some of them are said to be decontaminating since some members tested positive for COVID-19, is the department planning to test the entire staff? What will happen if a particular police station has more than 90% of their members testing positive for COVID-19? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Who starts?
She's got more questions.
She has a
Sorry, Minister, we have a caller on the line. It's Bonga Dulani from EWN.
Okay, let's take Bonga.
Thank you, Minister. Mine is also directed at the Minister of Defence. Considering that the FNDF report is now out exonerating those officers involved and saying that there must have been some underlying issues with Mr. Khoza or a sickness they didn't know about because a few pushes and claps from their members didn't kill him, will government consider appealing the court case and the court ruling against SNDF? Thank you.
Engos. Any other person online? None. Okay, thank you very much. Minister Magula.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Starting with the Collins Khoza case, I want to start by saying we were actually taken by surprise last night when we heard from the news that the report is in the hands of the media. Firstly, because all processes have not been exhausted in dealing with that issue. You have various entities within the South African National Defence Force who are collaborating in conducting the investigation related to this matter. So any suggestion that in fact the soldiers, if any soldiers or police or whoever were implicated in the murder of the gentleman, it's a matter which I do not want to comment on, precisely because it is a matter which is still under investigation, and in terms of the court, in fact, it is a sub judice matter. The fact that the court last week or 2 weeks ago made a ruling on suspending those who are supposedly implicated, but also issuing directives by both the police and the South African National Defence Force on how the law enforcement agencies should deal with people in the course of conducting their work. That has been done. It is a correct decision. But anything else which relates to whether this is a murder case or not is a matter which I would rather not comment on until such time all investigations have been concluded. The second matter is that of then Bonga asks if therefore we will appeal the court case. You'll recall, Bonga, that after the ruling of the court, I issued a statement to the effect that, one, the South African National Defence Force will not appeal the ruling of the courts or the directives which were being given by the court to us. We said we will do everything to comply with what the court had directed us to do, and that is exactly what we did. But there too, remember, the court did not deal with the actual merit or demerits of the merits of the case in terms of whether the person was murdered or not. But it simply gave us directives as to what we need to do to make sure that the police and the soldiers comply with the Bill of Rights of the people of South Africa and the Constitution in the manner in which they do their work. That is all we're directed to do. So we will still not appeal that. It is correct and we've complied with it. The last matter is that of the police and army deployment minister.
Okay, that seems to be a generic question, but let's start with the first question of how many people have been arrested. Last week I did give the number of 230,000. Today I'm giving the number of 264,000 people that have been arrested since the starting of the lockdown. 243,146. 243,146.
Okay.
Yes. And then, though 241 of those people have been processed, they are processed in different ways. Either police give them the bail, which they have a legislative right to do. They are taken to court. They are warned, given the bail, and others are given the date to come back to court. So 241 and 59 of those, they fall under that category. And then 2,087 of them, they are still, those cases are still under investigation, and 41,491 have been finalized. There is a relationship that is not very good here. Most of the people that have been arrested, they come from the hot areas. For instance,
Hotspots.
Western Cape leads in terms of the people that have been arrested. And it also leads in terms of the people that have and been affected by the coronavirus. And then Gauteng is second. The only province that got on the way of KZN, which is here, KZN is fourth now, but there is a correlation between those people that don't listen and the spread of the virus when you look at the figures here. So that was one question. I'm just adding, where do these figures come from? Western Cape is 57,000, Gauteng is 40,000, KZN is 27,000, Free State is 34,000, and then the list is Northern Cape with 8 and Mpumalanga with 10,000. So that makes you 243,000. So those are the people that's been arrested, processed, and all. We are in discussion with the Minister of Justice on these matters to see how people that have committed petty crimes do not find themselves with criminal records. We don't want to produce the country of criminals. So it's one thing that the Minister of Justice is dealing with the police and the courts. How do we deal with that? That would be the first question. The second question is roadblocks. Roadblocks, they are there. I don't know. Maybe they will give us exactly the areas where the Limpopo and Polokwane person have seen. They've been a little bit of a scaling down. Scaling down on roadblocks does not mean we've scaled down our operations. Other operations are in the middle of the residential areas. It could be not the main roads, but it could be the other artillery roads, either in the township or other suburbs on urban areas. But that continues. Maybe I'm going to come back to this question or answer it now by saying we are going to increase, especially on those areas where the president, as the statement was read, increase our roadblocks, those 6 metros in those districts like Ilembe, like West Coast and the Tigerberg. We're going to increase there. Though they've gone to 3, but they are hotspot, and it will work as such on that one. The last question that was asked was the question of the police stations that had members that were infected and closed. Yes, we are prepared. We were prepared for that it will happen. So we usually use the other offices that will be next to the police station. Indeed, it's a law that if one member is found to be positive, the police station itself is quarantined on its own, sanitized, and you move the members. And if the member has been positive, those members are checked and they're given enough time to be quarantined before they come back to work. Yeah. The police in South Africa, fortunately, are not restricted where they're supposed to work. So we'll move the replacement of those members to be in that particular police station. We work very hard that the services are not compromised, even if our members have been infected. Maybe it would be proper to say that for the South African police, up to this point, we have had 841 infected members of the South African police nationally, and 601 of them are in Western Cape alone, and which tells you that we have a problem in Western Cape. Out of 800, 600, they come from Western Cape, and we have lost 8 members as a South African police service now. May their soul rest in peace.
Thank you. So there was nothing for you, Minister Mtsoaledi, so far?
At peace.
Oh, yes. Enjoy your peace whilst it lasts. I see that there is no peace in some of your border areas. Any other questions before we close? Yes. Anna.
There is a question from Nokukanya, from Jacaranda FM, and it's directed to the Minister of Defense. Following the Collins Khoza matter, the court ordered the department to draft a code of conduct for soldiers to follow when dealing with citizens during the lockdown. Can you please take us through whether that code of conduct has been crafted and what is the detail of the code of conduct? Then there's a question from Betty from Channels TV Lagos, and it's directed to the Minister of Home Affairs. There are permit-holding non-South Africans who are stuck outside the country but live and work in the Republic. How can they come back to the country to be able to go back to work? Then there's a question from Nadia from Netwerk 24. Regarding hotspots, please clarify what is needed for moving around in hotspots. Will regulations be stricter in those areas, or will the normal regulations as published today apply? Isabel Fenter from Netwerk 24 is asking, Minister of Police, in terms of the new regulations, will people be fined if they are found not to be wearing masks in public? Then we have a question from Nabila from ETV News, and it's directed to Minister Mthembu. Please clarify if it's correct that citizens can now visit their families. It is not in the regulations, but it was mentioned earlier today. If someone is stopped by the police while on their way to visit their families, what should they do, and whether or not will they be allowed to proceed?
No, they will answer. They are here.
Okay.
They will answer those who uphold the law. They are here.
I have three last ones. Can I continue?
Why don't we finish them
Okay.
so that, yes.
Okay. Should I continue?
Yeah, let's finish
okay.
them.
Another question from Nadia from Netwerk 24. What is required to transport your child to school and back when a school is in the metro or a hotspot area? So, for example, if you live in Cape Town, for example, which would be a hotspot area, what measures are in place for you to transport your child to school and back, as schools will be reopening?
Can we allow that question to be answered by the ministers of education tomorrow? Okay, let's stand it down for now. Let's bring it back tomorrow to be answered by the relevant ministers. Okay.
The next two questions are directed to the Minister of Justice, and he's not here. I don't know if should I continue asking them, or should we
ask them? They work together.
Okay. The next question is from Mike Cohen from Bloomberg. He's asking, when do we expect the courts to be fully functional again? And Bongadlulana from EWN is asking, with correctional services, do we anticipate that COVID-19 numbers will increase, and that the minister has said that social distancing is difficult there? What are the creative measures to ensure that all protocols are observed in correctional services?
Okay, we are aware that the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is not here. If there are some questions that we can't answer, we will indeed make the point that those questions are answered, even if it means we send them to the person that has asked them by the Minister. Yeah.
One more question from Nazir from Glow TV. People have been arrested or harassed by police for having 1 or 2 cartons of cigarettes in their vehicles whilst taking it from their place of work to home. My understanding is that it's illegal to sell cigarettes, but not to be in possession of it. However, if it's illegal to possess, what is the quantity that that a private individual can carry in a car or keep at home? Also, the curfew for religious gatherings. Is there a curfew for religious gatherings?
Is the word for religious
A curfew.
A
So,
curfew.
yes.
Okay, who wants to start? Maybe let's start with a colleague who has not spoken. Minister Mswalet. It is with me. Where's your hope losses? Can't you sevenza? Okay. Now so funa sanitizer yena.
Thank you very much, Minister Mthembu. My question is about non-South Africans who are in their respective countries who want to come back to work. I'm sure you heard when the regulations was read, first earlier on by Minister Dlamini Zuma, and now by the Minister of Defense, Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula, when she was reading the statement on behalf of the JCPS cluster, clearly said the borders remain closed. And she named the few people who are allowed to go through the borders. This category of people who want to come to work in South Africa is not one of those that she has mentioned. She has mentioned special categories of people who are allowed because the borders are still closed. There's no decision from the National Command Council or from the Cabinet of the Republic of South Africa to open the borders for all other groups of people yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Minister Ndose.
There are quite several of these questions. Let me start with the are people allowed to visit their relatives. I hope you will read Regulation 33 very closely. All categories that are permitted appear there, and visiting your friends, your friends, your peers from Katsi to Katsi, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, does not appear. Does not appear on the Regulation 33. Is where somebody did try to put them on the put, and they know what happened. So the question of the permit by workers falls under that. The categories of people that can, simply put, if you are not going to go to those categories that appear on the regulations, it's quite long. I would have read them. You don't. But social visit is absolutely not allowed under level 3. I hope that that question is well answered. Will the people moving around minus face mask arrested? Why should they move around without a face mask? Because we should not be asking questions on behalf of the people that will be breaking the law. It's very clear. It's very clear what you're supposed to do. Ours is to urge and beg everybody to just do that, just follow the law. But as you go to the very same regulations, there are offenses and there are outcomes of the offenses. If it is regarded as an offense, if you break it, you're supposed to do it and you do it which means you are committing an offense. And it's very clear here what happens to those people that will be breaking the regulations. Is there well defined? I think you can read that one very well. Cigarettes, there is less about alcohol, and more about cigarettes question. Cigarettes are prohibited to be sold. There is no sale of cigarette and tobacco, which means if it is prohibited to be sold, it's prohibited to be bought. Simple. So if something is prohibited to sell it, so you can't buy something that is prohibited. So I will repeat this. I saw the lot of analysis after this question was answered to say is not a crime to carry cigarette. Nobody has said it's a crime to carry cigarette. What we have said, police have a right to seek the receipt of where you bought the cigarette. It will help us to know who is selling the cigarette when the cigarette is not allowed to be sold. And why do you buy cigarette when it's not allowed to be bought? That's that. So it will help. Police have the right to ask that receipt, because you might have bought it illegally, or you might have got it from the underground. Everybody talks about the black market. So we still have to protect the country out of the black market. So the onus is on you to tell us, where did you buy the cigarette? So simple on that one. So if you smoke cigarette at your home, we don't have an issue with that, as we didn't have an issue when you were drinking your alcohol at home. So there's no problem with that. But be prepared to tell the police where did you buy, and if you have the evidence, show it. If you don't, tell us who sold it to you, so that we can visit that person and ask that person why you're breaking the law, both the seller and the buyer. Program Director, just one more thing that has not been asked. Surely the regulations the statement did talk about it. The alcohol, as it has been said, will be sold from Monday to Thursday between 9 and 5. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, public holidays is not sold. And it is allowed to be moved from the 29th in preparation of filling your shelves and all that. Is not sold even on the e-commerce. So you can't order it online. So that tells you that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there is no movement of alcohol. If it is not bought, then it can't be moved, because you will have to move it the day that is allowed for you to buy. Otherwise, you will tell us, why do you move it on the day that is not supposed to have been bought? That includes, simply put, those that they order it from line cannot be delivered. If it is out of these 4 days and out of this time. One other thing I want to explain, all licensed places will sell alcohol of consumption. We want to urge our people here, we want to urge the public out there. They shouldn't get into temptations because you can sell off consumption. At 5, everybody closes. At 5, everybody closes. There is no sit down. So don't get tempted to say, because you are still supplying, you are still delivering food, and smuggle the bottle in that food. Don't do that. When 5 comes, you stop selling liquor, you stop selling alcohol. So you can continue with food, deliver, so that one must be very clear. There are no gatherings, so you still drink alone. So there is no partying. The question was asked of social visit. There is no social visit to go and drink with the uncle, with the guy, alumni that you were together at school. You still drink alone. So those are the things. We want to put this so that police don't have the hard time dealing with the people when they are dealing with alcohol. And we want police to be soft as they can, but don't push them too hard and force them to not to be soft. So we believe we'll work very well together on this one. That goes to the churches. There is a question asked about the churches, if there would be a curfew. The curfew has been removed, Chairperson. The curfew has been removed. There are strict health issues that are there. Is the social distance will have to be there. There have to be the sanitizers at the door. People have to put the masks. There is, I know, good people at church, they like hugging and all that. No hugging. I don't want to say no kissing. No hugging. No kissing in the church. Yes, because you can't kiss anybody anything beyond 1.5 meters. So there is no kissing, and then the 50 that will have to be there. So, but when people go to church, because there is no curfew, we hope that everybody will be, including churches, will be reasonable to be there in time that we all believe is a normal time, and before it's too late and people can go. But we hope to work very closely, to work in a very amicable way with both the churches and with the people that will be dealing with alcohol. Please help us as the South African police to have an easy job on this one. Thank you very much.
Mama. It is sanitized. Okay, nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. The first thing I would like to say is this, that Well, we have been directed, of course, by the courts to give some directives and about do's and don'ts by the law enforcement agencies. But it's important for me to clarify one thing, which is that in any event, the South African National Defence Force does have a code of conduct for uniformed members. And allow me, colleagues, just to read a few, just shortly, what is stipulated in that code of conduct, so that you can have an understanding of why we have issued the kind of directives we have done. I pledge to serve and defend my country and its people in accordance with the Constitution and the law, and with honor, dignity, courage, and integrity. I serve in the South African National Defence Force with loyalty and pride as a citizen and a volunteer. I respect the democratic political process and civil control of the South African National Defence Force. I will not advance or harm the interests of any political party or organization. I accept personal responsibility for my actions. I will obey all lawful commands and respect all superiors. I will refuse to obey an obviously illegal order. I will carry out my mission with courage and assist my comrades in arms, even at the risk of my own life. I will treat all people fairly and respect their rights and dignity at all times, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, culture, language, or sexual orientation. I will respect and support subordinates and treat them fairly. I will not abuse my authority, position, or public funds for personal gain, political motive, or any other. I will report criminal activity, corruption, and misconduct to the appropriate authority. I will strive to improve the capabilities of the South African National Defence Force by maintaining discipline, safeguarding property, developing skills and knowledge, and performing my duties diligently and professionally. This is the code of conduct of the South African National Defence Force. And sitting here, I'm assuming and I'm almost certain that the police and any other law enforcement agencies do have a code of conduct. Now, the directives which have been issued, we have issued, are all over, they have been published. And I'm sure even if you go on Google, you will find them. But I will just read to you a few. We have presented here do's and don'ts. If you look at scenario 1, under looting, stroke public disturbance, under do's we are saying, South African National Defence Force members have an inherent right to self-defense, and everywhere where we start with do's, we start by making that kind of statement, which is the right to defend themselves. Then we say, under looting, disperse the crowd. Now, dispersing the crowd, you may shout verbally, warning, you may detain, you may restrain, you may arrest, but disperse the crowd. Call for backup. Allow members of the South African Police Service to take over. Protect the police. Take a video if you can. If the situation escalates, withdraw. These are do's. And under don'ts, under looting still, it says no warning shot. Don't shoot a person unless in self-defense. Don't get in a physical fight with members of the public unless in self-defense. This is under looting. It goes on and on. I just want to read this one though. If you find a person drinking in his yard, do's. South African National Defence members, as I said, have an inherent right to self-defense. We start by that everywhere. If you find them drinking in their yard, ignore them. The don't is, don't enter any premises. Don't enter their premises. And continue to patrol. So your patrol is on the road, in the streets or wherever, but don't enter. You can't patrol somebody's yard inside. You can't do that. Then there is somewhere where it says, which talks about provocation, which is something we've been talking about, that there's no reason why people should provoke, should insult law enforcement agencies. And under do's there, of course, we start with inherent right to self-defense, and then we say, ignore. Just ignore a person who provokes you. Exercise higher tolerance levels against such people, such conduct. Exercise restraint. Warn members of the community to disperse as they provoke you. It dawns, Ziti. don't get in physical fight with members of the public and don't shoot. This is now under provocation stroke insults. In roadblocks, our dues are that members of the defense force have an inherent right to self-defense, as I've said. Dues, they may establish a roadblock. They must protect subs, searchers, because subs will be conducting roadblocks and searching cars. They must be there to protect members of the South African Police Service. Of course, there must be show of force and protection of administrative areas. They must give early warnings to groups of people. They must observe suspicious vehicles and persons. They must provide guards for arrested people. And of course, with regards to the South African Military Health Services personnel, they must continue providing support to the National Department of Health. Now, and it then says, with specific reference to this operation, don't establish roadblocks independently. Reason being, as you all know, this operation is in support of all government departments. So in the case of roadblocks, we are there in support of the police. Don't search vehicles and persons, because that is the responsibility of the police. Don't arrest, because we don't carry warrants of arrest. It's the police who do that. Don't handle evidence. And all of that, all of those things which you know are done by the police. What we do, we are there to provide whatever support necessary for us to provide to the police. Or in the case the police actually direct that we need help here. Once they call upon the defense force, then the defense force moves in. However, when you see armed robbery, call backup. Private defense to law enforcement personnel and public, you may do that. Secure the crime scene. Use of force, including deadly force, to stop the robbery if a need arises. Because it also depends on what the robbers will be carrying and what form of force they will be using against citizens. Then we went on to say, but it dawns when you see armed robbery, you can't ignore it as a member of the South African National Defence Force. You don't tamper with the crime scene or evidence, because that is the responsibility of the police. If you see a cash in transit, you call backup. You call private defense to law enforcement personnel and public. You secure the crime scene. If needs be, you use force, including deadly force, to stop the heist, to support the police. And it goes on and on. Now, if you see a case of domestic violence, the dues are that you call the police, you assist in cooperating with the investigation. So you've seen it, so you cooperate with those who are investigating to attest to whatever it is you may have witnessed. It dawns is that as a member of the South African National Defence Force, you may not at all, you don't ignore, not may, you don't ignore a domestic violence incident. It can't occur in your presence and you just ignore it and you don't shoot. Now, there are several of them, but I was just reading those I believe are critical for us to understand that as we were issuing these, we did specify what it is that members of the South African National Defence may not do, and that which they have an obligation to do. I think that is all what was raised. Am I correct, Ministers? Thank you, Minister Tim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. That basically ends. What?
I have a few more questions.
Huh?
I have a few more questions, Minister.
How many did we take from you? We took 10.
Yes.
Now you want to add.
Can we take 5 more?
Let's take 3.
All right. Uluyolo from Business Day to the Minister of Home Affairs. Could you please elaborate on the category of people allowed to undertake international travel during level 3? And also is also asking what kind of marriage services are permitted under level 3. Another question also to the Minister of Home Affairs. Can you please give an update on contact tracing of COVID-19 cases in the country? Then the last is from Olim Gambi at ENCA, and they directed to the Minister of Police. Can the Minister tell us if there is a re-emergence of political killings in KZN? Execution-style killings of 2 ANC members this week have been confirmed by the ANC KZN leadership. And can the Minister tell us whether the Morane Commission recommendations have been implemented? Thank you.
How does the Minister of Home Affairs deal with contact tracing? Because can we leave that for health tomorrow? Let's leave that for health tomorrow. It can't be a question directed to the Minister of Home Affairs. But you have heard the other 2. Okay, let's get on with them. Ibinto yokuthetha.
Thank you very much. If you may remember, we issued statements sometimes last week about the decision of the National Command Council in terms of a presentation made by the Department of Home Affairs in consultation with DECO about the type of people who are allowed to, the type of South Africans who are allowed to travel out of the country to go overseas. Firstly, we said it was people who got jobs there, who have been having the jobs long before the lockdown. Secondly, students, people who have been studying there. And thirdly, people who have acquired permanent residency of those countries. And fourthly, people who have got relatives in those countries, family, if let me put it that way, not relatives, family, who are going to rejoin their family, not relatives. And lastly, people who are going for medical care in those countries. They have been given permission and they've been living from last week. And if I may give the numbers, because we already know exactly who has left, there are 6,742 who left since the 20th of May. 688 of them left by air, 6,051 by land, and 3 by sea. Those are the categories of people who are allowed to leave the country, and they've already started doing that. The issue of marriage, yes, I think Minister Dlamini Zuma did explain this. I was listening to her during the day, even was not here. Firstly, she said we are not allowing marriage ceremony, wedding ceremonies. We are not allowing them. But people can go to the Home Affairs Department to get married. And we made it very clear, the conditions, that it is the 2 people who are getting married and there are 2 witnesses, no crowds. And because the majority of marriage officers are ministers of religion, we've also said the same thing. If a minister of religion is going to marry couples in their office, then the couple must come only with 2 witnesses, and we don't want crowd there. And of course, something that we believe is obvious, we didn't put there, all marriages are by appointment only. You just don't pitch up in the Department of Home Affairs and say, I want to get married. You have got to make an appointment, because not everybody working in Home Affairs is a marriage officer.
Yeah.
They must make sure that that marriage officer is there and is ready for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next, Ndosi? Wenzani uyayifutha mngani wami. Ifuna ukufuthwa naye lo.
No, thanks. Is this one
Yeah.
on? No, thanks. The question from Oli. Minister of Police woke up early this morning and went to KZN on the same issue. We are taking it very serious, and the chairperson of that interministerial of the political killings has spoken to the members. One of those members are here. We've spoken with the Minister of Defense this morning to say we shouldn't allow it to go where it was one day. We spoke to the Premier this morning. We spoke to the Police National Commission of the South African Police, and the Deputy Minister of the Police are still down there. This is one matter that has taken us down there, and we take it very, very serious. That killing happened, the young youth league person in Mpumalanga, and one person was a councillor in Matubatuba. There was also 2 weeks before the person was killed, of the councillor, one person was in Duna, and a strong IFP member was killed at Matubatuba. So there are several scenarios. I don't want to talk about scenarios because already those cases that they've got some political connotation have been given to the team that is working on political killings in KZN. We wish it's not, but if it is re-emergence, we will not allow that to happen. We have covered a very long ground there. Some of the recommendation of Morane was further investigations. We have had a team there that has investigated. More than 100 people have been arrested in the province for political killings in different times and different categories. So we have taken some, and we are working hard that we deal with that matter in that province. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That should end our questions and our question session. Let me thank my colleagues, Minister Mtswaledi, Minister Cele, and Minister Mapisa Ngakola. Thank you very much, colleagues, because one of the responsibilities we carry as government is to keep South Africa informed, to keep our people informed of what we're doing. That is the essence of these media briefings, and we will continue doing so. Like we have said, tomorrow we are having the social cluster. We have just concluded the JCPS cluster now. Tomorrow morning at 10 we're having the social cluster, and tomorrow at 2 o'clock we're having the economic cluster. Once again, to my colleagues, thank you very much, and to members of the media, thank you very much. To our sign language interpreters, thank you very much. And to people at home who have been listening to this broadcast and the earlier broadcast, we don't take you for granted. We appreciate that you have listened to what government has to say, particularly as it relates to the regulations that will guide us under level 3 come Monday, the 1st of June. With those words having been said, again, let's thank our broadcasters, by the way, who are beaming all these media conferences to our houses, to various institutions. We really appreciate all our broadcasters, Newsroom Africa, SABC, ENCA. We really appreciate that you are always here and always carrying us live, because you understand the importance of being the conduit that carries our message to our people. We appreciate so much. Again, we don't take for granted the time and the space that you give to us as government. With those words having been said, thank you and thank you very much. This media briefing is now concluded. Until tomorrow morning at 10. Thank you very much.